Exodus chapter 20, beginning in verse 1. Then God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an idol, or any likeness of what is in heaven above, or on earth beneath, or in the water under the earth. You shall not worship them or serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children, on the third and the fourth generations of those who hate me, but showing loving kindness to thousands, to those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not leave him unpunished who takes his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath of the Lord your God. In it you shall not do any work, you or your son or your daughter, your male or your female servant, or your cattle or your sojourner who stays with you. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be prolonged in the land which the Lord your God gives you. You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor, you shall not covet your neighbor's house, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, his male servant or his female servant, or his ox or his donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. And all the people perceived the thunder and the lightning flashes and the sound of the trumpet and the mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they trembled and stood at a distance. Then they said to Moses, Speak to us yourself, and we will listen, but let not God speak to us, lest we die. And Moses said to the people, Do not be afraid, for God has come in order to test you, and in order that the fear of him may remain with you, so that you may not sin. So the people stood at a distance while Moses approached the thick cloud where God was. Then the Lord said to Moses, Thus you shall say to the sons of Israel, You yourselves have seen that I have spoken to you from heaven. You shall not make other gods besides me, gods of silver or gods of gold. You shall not make for yourselves. You shall make an altar of earth for me, and you shall sacrifice on it your burnt offerings and your peace offerings, your sheep and your oxen. In every place where I cause my name to be remembered, I will come to you and bless you. And if you make an altar of stone for me, you shall not build it of cut stones, for if you wield your tool on it, you will profane it. And you shall not go up by steps to my altar, that your nakedness may not be exposed on it. Okay, go back. Okay, let's look at verse 3. It says, You shall have no other gods before me. And just remember, it's been at the most 2 months since they've left Egypt. 6 to 8 weeks since they left Egypt. This should be fresh on their mind. And it's like, this is a no-brainer. They just saw all the gods that Egypt worshipped. They had Ra, the sun god, and the goddess of the Nile. And God has just demonstrated that he alone is sovereign over the Nile. He alone is sovereign over the sun. And he exposed the fraud of all their idols and their false gods. He's exposed them for what they are. Made up, powerless, just made up gods. And so when he says, You shall have no other gods before me, it's like, in fact, when I was studying this, I couldn't help but think about Peter when we were in John chapter 6, and Jesus was talking about being the bread of life, and he offended everyone in the crowd. And they were described as his disciples walked away and no longer followed him. And then Jesus turns to the 12 and says, Do you want to leave too? And Peter said, To whom shall we go? You alone have the words of life. And so that's what I kept thinking of. Where else would we go? He's just exposed the falseness of all the other gods. And the other thing, he's separating out a people unto himself. they're going to look so different than the pagan nations around them. Because idolatry, just multiple gods, it was very common. Which that kind of says to me that's probably our flesh nature. Just needing something. And so I think that's going to be our natural tendency to have other gods. And but he wants to be, he's just demonstrated his, and he even says, I am the Lord your God, very personal. I brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. And so he's saying that. He says, you shall have no other gods before me. And this before me, it doesn't mean I'm first and then all these other gods can follow. It means no other God, period. And just no other gods. And that seems like a no-brainer, but then we're going to see it's just going to be a few chapters and they're already going to break
First
these.
thing they do is make another god.
I know. So we're gonna cover idolatry again because Moses is going up on the mountain. He's going to be there 40 days, and in the meantime, they're going to make a golden calf and worship it. And remember that God's saying this within their hearing, like all the people can hear God thundering and saying this, and it's just going to take, within the next 40 days. They're going to break them. So it's got to be like a very natural tendency. That's why I wanted to cover these kind of thoroughly, because it's easy to think of idolatry as something we don't do here because we don't have a bunch of idols. But we're going to see that it's very common, a very natural tendency, and a sin, a gross sin. Let's just say that. Okay, and then verse 4, you shall not make for yourself an idol in the likeness of what is in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the water under the earth. So, I've heard that they take this so. Dion's checking for me, but I've heard Kathy Hampton went to Israel, and she had mentioned that they take this so seriously that if you go to a park and there's a statue, it's abstract. Like they don't even have statues of anything that would resemble anything. And some have taken it so far that they don't even have nativities. But I think if we just look at this, the point of the verse is like we like to worship what we can see. And so it's making something to worship, and it has to do with the worship and making something that we can see to worship, because we are walk by sight people, and we're being transformed into walk by faith people, but our natural flesh nature wants a visual. Mm-hmm. And it's so wrong. And then it's just, just following what you can see. And I can't help but think about Revelation when I'm reading this, because that's going to be the ultimate when they follow a false prophet and the Antichrist. Just it's going to be a visual, and the people are going to have to choose: do I trust a God I can't see, or do I trust the leadership I can see? And so that's where it's ultimately played out. Okay. And then in verse 5, you shall not worship them or serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God. And I love that. The word jealous means to have great zeal. God has great zeal to come against anything that threatens our holiness. So anything that would tarnish or threaten our holiness, God is going to come against very zealously. And then this part gets a lot of questions. Visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children, on the third and the fourth generations of those who hate me. And so, just as parents, what we worship, who we worship, how we worship, it's going to affect our families. And that's just the bottom line. You can look at King David, wonderful, wonderful king, had sin in his life. His sin had consequences, and it affected his family. We're going to read about Solomon today. He made choices, and it affected the whole nation of Israel. It just affects. But this isn't like a supernatural spiritual stronghold that can't be broken. It's nothing like that. It's just their consequences. And so anyway, I think that's what that means there. And then I loved the contrast, the third and fourth generations of those who hate me, but 1,000 generations to those who love me. And that's just a way of saying, forever and ever and ever, those who love me. Showing loving kindness to thousands, meaning thousands of generations, to those who love me and keep my commandments. Okay, do you all have any questions on those? Like, I was even thinking about Noah. After they got off the ark, Noah got drunk, naked, and Ham walks in and sees his father's nakedness, and he goes to make sport of it, and he grabs his brothers. But when Shem and Japheth go in, they walk in backwards, and then they cover their father's nakedness. But Noah didn't say, "Cursed be Ham." It was, "Cursed be Canaan," who was Ham's son. And so it affected the Canaanites. But I bring that up because then we have all the way in the New Testament Rahab, who was a Canaanite. So it doesn't mean you can't be saved. It doesn't mean you're, forever cursed and separated from God. There's still opportunity for salvation. It's not like that. It's just their consequences, but not eternal separation from God consequences. Just. Do you have any questions on that?
I can see that. I see that in my family. On my dad's side, all of the men struggle with impulsive buying.
Yes.
Like Christmas shopping, they come home with everything they've got.
Yes.
And it's been generations that they've dealt with that. And my dad realized, growing up, I remember my dad would buy a telescope. He'd come home with it, unpack it, and then the next day he'd take it back and be convicted. Like, no, I gotta buy food for my family today,
Yes.
But he decided that he's like, I need to break this habit now in my life because I don't want my son to have to deal with it. But he said all of his family growing up, and uncles, everybody had to struggle with that. So it's just the natural consequences that unchecked will only multiply in the generations below.
Yes, that is so interesting. That's a great example.
And it's funny, it's a struggle, not funny, but it's a struggle. I mean, you always say, I'm never going to be like, I remember,
Yes.
I'm never going to be like that. But I'm so like that. And I think, gosh, I need to quit. So, but even things, I mean, my dad's like, both my parents are really stubborn. And I always say, I'm never going to be that way. But, I mean, I find myself fighting it a lot. Even, I mean, they say, you spend your whole adulthood trying to make up for correct your parents' mistakes. But, I mean, I certainly make them every day. But it's even things that you are literally fighting daily against to not be that way. It still affects them. I mean, you still see it in that work.
Yes, it does.
In fact, more of a whole study on it about breaking free,
Yeah.
breaking that generational sin.
Yeah.
We can't. It's very difficult.
But it's not doom and
No.
gloom. It's just, it's just difficult.
And what better reason to improve,
Right.
for the sake of your children. You can't do it for yourself, do it for your children.
Yes, and it's
your
a
grandchildren.
huge motivator. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, I had a question where it says don't make idols of anything in the heavens above
Yes.
or the waters below.
Right.
So, I mean, I think of all these angels, statues, and in certain face, they've got all the saints and then Mary, and I wonder, it's like, do they realize? Have they not read that one? I wonder.
Well, I know, and that's what I say. Some take it to the extreme where we can't even have nativity, but I think this is specifically addressing worship. And if we're doing it to create something that gives us a visual so we can worship, it is such a sin. And it's such a natural, it's so part of our human nature to want to see. We just want to see. And that's just so contrary to what he's... Because even in the Holy of Holies, they're going to have cherubim embroidered. So I think that it definitely is talking about worship. Like it's just something that we make to worship.
And pray
so if
to someone
yes,
to be
like you set your statue up there so you
in
can.
Christ.
Yes,
So do you think
yes.
Catholicism, has a lot of symbolism, the saints, pictures of saints and stuff, which it could be taken to the certain extreme, the same thing.
Knowing our tendencies, yes. And
They have some kind of a statue that like they bury in their yard to bring good luck
Well,
to
and
their
they
house.
pray to different
Yeah.
saints. That's
Right
what
out there?
bothers me. is
Yes,
that
that's
they will
just-
offer prayer to
yes.
a different saint.
That's just, yeah, that's not what, yes, this is warning against that.
Mhm.
And,
And they'll even have a little crown in their car for some kind of the saint of travel or something like that. And I'm like, okay.
yes, and that, when it turns into a mysticism and a paganism, it's so repulsive to God. I mean, it's so bad. And I mean, I wrote down just several, like, definitions of idolatry, and it's when we, instead of trusting in God and His Word, it's we put our hope in something else. Like, oh, I hope this crown will give me safe travel, rather than our hope in God's Word and just trusting Him. It's putting our faith, when our faith in God has been replaced with something else. I mean,
Well, you have the whole phrase "good luck," and how many times have Abby and I talked
I
about
know.
that? It's like,
I
there's
know.
really no such thing. Either
know.
God's gonna take care of you or He's not.
yeah.
And either way, it's still God.
That sometimes.
Well, it's just because
Yeah.
it's something that you hear
I know.
constantly. It's like, break a leg. It's like, do you really want them to break a leg? It's like,
And like my friends, like I know like a lot of them are like they like their boyfriends or girlfriends are their idols now. Like on Instagram you see, I love you, baby. It's like you're 13, you do not know I love you. It's like seriously.
That is so
It
true.
does become an
Yes.
obsession.
But just that
Right,
it could be
and-
anything.
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
anything that we pursue. Like if we're to seek God with all of our heart, if we have a divided heart in our pursuits, like if I just had that, then I would be happy. Or if I just, I mean, that's just putting all of our hope in something that's false. Or
I look at shoes. Some people have cute shoes.
I like cute. You're saying that because you know I like cute shoes. I know, but it is not my God. I promise you. Yes.
What is that shoe fab? There's that commercial where that woman's in there and she realizes she doesn't have a certain color and her husband's like really onto her about all the shoes she has. But it's taken over her closet.
Yes.
And like sometimes I've noticed as I'm cleaning through my home, as I have not, I want y'all to know I do clean my house. But it's just like I think paperwork can be like clutter. It can be as just organization, not having so much stuff. I mean, all of us have so much stuff. It can be kind of a sin.
Well, if we're using it to
Am I
fill a
saying that- am I on the right
void,
track or am I off?
I mean, anything that we're
Am I
trying
on
to,
track?
if we're trying to
Dawn?
pursue our own happiness
Yeah.
through whatever, if it makes us happy, but it's not God, anything, sin promises so much. I mean, you know that, and it delivers not at all. I was thinking about. Well, actually, I was thinking about Eve a lot this week because how when Satan tempted her,
Oh, yeah,
he
the
said
apple.
you can
It's
be.
not the apple, it was the fruit.
You can be like God, knowing good and evil. And so she ate it, hoping to become wise. And that just like exposed our desire to be God. And that's what this was like. This is about, I know what makes me happy. I'm going to do what, I don't try. And I can even remember visiting with a young girl dating phase. And she was just so afraid to trust God because she thought he's going to give me someone ugly or someone that I don't love. And so, but it's like, no, I don't trust God to be good. I don't trust him to make me happy. I want to be my own God. And that was the other thing that, on my reading, that makes idolatry so appealing is, we won't read the passages, but there are some that talk about they have mouths but they don't speak. Where here God is speaking in the hearing of all. Well, when your God doesn't speak, then you can speak for it. You can make him be anything you want. And so we're going to make him a little more palatable, a little less hard, not so
Personal
judgmental.
control. You're still in control.
You're still in control of your God. Yes.
Which means
You got exactly. I'm the boss of me, and yes, and that's,
Even though none of those things, no matter how much you shop, no matter how many shoes you have, no matter how many that boyfriend, let's go to the next one. None of
It's
that ever fills
empty.
that boy.
It's just empty. 'Cause I know. And
But
then
we
we
keep
look at
searching.
Eve,
I mean, we
and then the
keep-
next,
Yeah.
you know, and then she's expecting to be like God, crunch, crunch, and then the next thing you know, she's naked, ashamed, and hiding. And I love the oh, I just went blank on her name. Famous Kay Arthur. My sin took me further than I ever intended to go, kept me longer than I ever intended to stay, and cost me more than I ever intended to pay. And that's what sin does. It promises so much, delivers nothing, and you're still empty, and then you have to go. But God is so full. I mean, I loved when we were studying Ephesians this summer. It's just the fullness of God, the fullness of Him. You know, just it kept using the word fullness, and that's just the best word to describe. My cup overfloweth. I mean, just the fullness from knowing. But you can't tell people that because it doesn't make sense on paper. You just have to know that you know that you know, and it's so true.
I mean, I think about in Luke when Jesus is telling them that you have to hate your family.
Yes,
Like, everything has to be
yes.
considered hate in comparison.
Yes, in comparison to our love for
Love,
Him.
yeah.
And the other passage that comes to mind is in Matthew 6 in the Beatitudes when He says, you know, don't worry about what you'll eat or what you'll wear. Even the pagans chase after those things. But seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness. And then it just puts life in perspective. And so, yeah, good. Okay. Any other thoughts or comments on the, you know, the command that He just boomed out in the hearing of all? Okay, we'll go to Hosea. Did I put Hosea first? I didn't know what order. We're going to look at 3 different chapters, and they're going to give 3 different just perspectives on idolatry. It's just 3 different looks of idolatry. And I mean this is, I mean, I can remember reading this and it just clicked, and I saw, talk about the sword of God splitting you open and laying you bare and exposing. This is what Hosea did for me. It I just remember the day I read it and I got it, and it just laid me bare, and it's very convicting. So I always go to this one first because, yeah. And so Hosea is written over a time of 40 to 45 years. It covered 3 different kings. So the middle king for sure, and then bookended. So about 40 to 45 years. And Hosea was a prophet of God, and Hosea was told by God to go marry a prostitute. And so he married Gomer, and Gomer was an adulterous woman. And throughout their entire marriage, they ended up having 3 children together, but their entire marriage, she would just be unfaithful, and then Hosea was always faithful, and he would lure her back, and their whole marriage went like this. She was unfaithful, he would bring her back, love her. She'd chase after her lovers again, he'd lure her back, love her. And God wanted him to do this and record this and use it as an example of God's relationship to unfaithful Israel. And God, just the fierce, unrelenting love that He has for His people. And in spite of their continued unfaithfulness, He, like unrelenting, He will not let go. And so here we start with Hosea and Gomer and that relationship, but then you'll see it transitions into Israel. So this is Hosea. He says, "Say to your brothers, Ami, and to your sisters, Runa, contend with your mother, contend, for she is not my wife, and I'm not her husband, and let her put away her harlotry from her face and her adultery from between her breasts." And so here Hosea is urging his kids, tell your mom, come back. She's being unfaithful. You know, bring her back. Contend with her, lest I strip her naked and expose her as on the day when she was born. I will also make her like a wilderness, make her like desert land, and slay her with thirst. Now we're going to see some pretty harsh things, but know that when God does these things, it's not to be mean or spiteful or vengeful or I'm going to get even with that. It's not that at all. He's going to cause hardships so that she'll want to come home. And that's what you're going to see, just this unrelenting love and faithfulness in spite of the circumstances. Verse 4, also I will have no compassion on her children, because they are children of harlotry, for their mother has played the harlot. She who conceived them has acted shamefully, for she said, I will go after my lovers who give me my bread and my water, my wool and my flax, my oil and my drink. Therefore, behold, I will hedge up her way with thorns. I will build a wall against her so that she cannot find her paths, and she will pursue her lovers, but she will not overtake them. And she will seek them, but will not find them. Then she will say, I will go back to my first husband, for it was better for me then than now. So all of that is just to make her long for that relationship again. So he's going to lure her back. And then he says, for she does not know that it was I who gave her the grain, the new wine, the oil, and lavished on her silver and gold, which they used for Baal. And if you remember when we were in Deuteronomy 8, he kept saying, now you're in the wilderness, now you're in a desert, there's no water. One day you're going to be in a land flowing with milk and honey. Never forget that I'm your provider. Never forget that I'm the one who provides you with. Even when the land is producing, it's still dependent on God for their provision. Still. And he says, never forget. I don't know if you remember, through Exodus, it's been, don't forget the Lord, don't forget the Lord, never forget the Lord, what he's done for you, don't forget. And then here we see, oh, she forgot. She doesn't know that it was I. So he's just lavished all this blessing upon blessing upon blessing, and yet she doesn't know that it was her husband who was lavishing her. And then they go and they turn it and they use it for Baal. So all the gifts, all the blessings that he's given to Israel, she turns and uses it to worship other gods. Therefore, I will take back my grain at harvest time and my new wine in its season. I will also take away my wool and my flax, given to cover her nakedness. And then I will uncover her lewdness in the sight of her lovers, and no one will rescue her out of my hand. I will also put an end to her gaiety, her feast, her new moons, her Sabbaths, all her festival assemblies, and I will destroy her vines and figs, of which she said, these are my wages which my lovers have given me. And I will make them a forest, and the beasts of the field will devour them, and I will punish her for the days of Baals, when she used to offer sacrifices to them, and adorn herself with her earrings and jewelry, and follow her lovers, so that she forgot me, declares the Lord. Therefore, behold, I will allure her, bring her into the wilderness, and speak kindly to her. Then I will give her her vineyards from there, and the valley of Achor as a door of hope, and she will sing there as in the days of her youth, as in the day when she came out from the land of Egypt. And so you see again, he's going to call her back, just her unfaithfulness. And I like, the older I get and the more I study, I think one of the worst sins is ingratitude, not being grateful for what he's done, not even acknowledging that these are blessings. And it says, and especially as we live in this entitlement society, there is just no gratitude. She never acknowledged that it was God. She wasn't grateful for what he had done. And she even said it was paid for her lovers. Where in Deuteronomy 8, he said, lest your heart become proud and you think, I did this by my power. It's just forgetting God and just attributing all the blessings to something other than his kindness. Okay. But then again, his unrelenting faithfulness in spite of our unfaithfulness, he just does not let go. He does not let go. And then I love 3:1. Then the Lord said to me, go again. So now God's talking to Hosea. He says, go again, love a woman who is loved by her husband, yet an adulteress, even as the Lord loves the sons of Israel. They turn to other gods and love raisin cakes. And so he's comparing this, going after other gods, to spiritual adultery. I mean, that's just the most horrible betrayal that I can imagine. And then here, he's, in spite of her unfaithfulness, he's faithful. And but I wanted you to see that how gross it is in the sight of God, our unfaithfulness, and not being grateful to Him for His blessings, but rather attributing the blessings of God to something else, something or someone. Luck, good luck, the crown. We already said because we had a crown. I mean, all those things. That's just such betrayal.
I was just thinking, sometimes when God calls us to service, it doesn't necessarily mean everything's going to be happy. Because this man had to be miserable. The only joy he had was in the Lord.
Yes.
Because you know he had to be a laughing
I know.
stock.
Yeah.
Just like the
especially
world
when-
makes fun of Christians and God now. He was probably
But
laughed at and
he
ridiculed.
endured all of that for the love of her. He never quit loving her. Yeah, it's just amazing. It's a great picture of that unrelenting love and faithfulness. It's just he's so faithful even when we're not.
Which came from his love from God.
Yes.
His love of God.
Yes, exactly.
It allowed
yes.
him to love her.
Yes. Yes.
I love how it says, I like the first 3 when you said, but just that first word, it says, the Lord said to me, go.
Mm-hmm.
Like he had to be the initiator of that
Yes.
restoration.
Yes.
And I think that speaks so heavily to me just because I would say, probably over the past 8 months, I really kind of found myself in just kind of a desert place spiritually. And you talk about, where does talk about having other idols and things. I think sometimes as a mom, not that my children are my idols or my household is my idol, but my devotion rests more fully there sometimes.
Yes.
Than my devotion to the Lord. Whereas, I'm going to be a great mom, and for me, because I'm going to be a great mom, and my kids are going to be great, or my house is going to be in order for me, and the Lord sort of loses his place there, and the Lord really, and I don't know that I've said this before, but just being here at this Bible study it's just a showing of the Lord doing this right here. Go. For me personally in my life, and just over the last month or 2, the Lord has really drawn me out, and I think what it just has overcome me, which is the renewed gratitude and sense of devotion to the Lord, is that fact that it was me who had sort of put God on the back. Not that I didn't love him or that he wasn't important, but I just my thoughts didn't drift towards him, and he wasn't first as he should be. And he totally has done this. He totally has been the initiator, and the Holy Spirit working within me to bring me back to being fully devoted to him. And so I don't think I'd ever just read specifically this verse right here, and so that I just love that.
That is such a good point. He
And I
is
think that
the
stage that
initiator.
you're in, and a lot of these young ladies are in, is one of the hardest stages to maintain your spiritual walk. I mean, once you're older and your kids are grown, you've got a whole lot more time, and you should be accountable for the time you use. But it's hard. It's hard for your kids not to be out in front.
I know, but when your kids are gone, there's always something else. It's just such our human
You
nature.
still have to fight it, but it's a hard time.
I
being
think
their
that's
age.
why he says it over and over and over and over and over, because that is our tendency. And then, but what's so amazing is it's so easy to justify
Oh, yeah.
instead of letting the word just pierce us and expose it and just convict us and get forgiven. And I love what she reminded us, that he's the pursuer. Absolutely. Always. I mean, even in the
I
garden.
can't even take credit for it. I
I
can't even take
know.
credit for the fact, you just have to say it's always all him. It's always all him.
Yes. Even going back to the garden, he came out, Adam, where are you? I mean, he saw it then. They were hiding
Yeah.
and running. I know, he's so
Because even if
good.
your kids are great, We still can't. We still get to
I love 14, 2:14,
Uh-huh.
because he's going to bring her into the wilderness and he's going to speak kindly to her. I mean, if somebody was adulterous, you know what I mean? If I was going to forgive them, I don't know if I was going to. I mean,
You'd lecture
it's
him
enough
first.
to forgive them. Yes. But he's going to speak kindly. It's amazing.
Yes.
It's a different kind of love.
It is. Yes. It's an amazing
Well,
love.
and it's a reminder too how we, a model how we have to love our spouses. You
Yeah.
know, because none of us are perfect, and
Yeah,
sometimes
this
it's
is
not that
a-
easy to love at times.
Yeah. Right. And just look at Hosea. No excuses. I mean, he was.
I mean, yeah.
I think that's a neat thing about Hosea. I mean, he did all this. God told him to marry the. You know, he told him to love her, and he's being faithful to God. You know what I mean? I'm sure he loves her, but he's being faithful to God, and that's, you know, some of us, you know, it can be so hard in our marriage, you know, or in relationship, but marriage in particular. But marriage is a picture, you know, and just like this was a picture, and it's so important that we're faithful to God and that we're showing the picture that He wants us to show.
Yeah.
Because imagine if a Hosea hadn't been faithful to God, we wouldn't have this picture of God's love.
That is good. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, do we pursue our spouse the same way God pursued Israel? You know, do we,
Yeah.
you know, put that into our relationships as well?
Okay. Any other thoughts? They're so good. Okay, we'll go to the next one. And each one of these are going to expose idolatry from a different perspective and just shows different aspects. I mean, I think that I was like surprised to learn how many ways adultery can be, or idolatry, can be played out. And so we're going to see another picture of it here. And is it put Kings next? First Kings? Okay. Now this is King Solomon.
I have
Yes, please.
something. In Hosea, when they're talking about where she feels like that's payment for all the things that she's done, and it's like, okay, she's trying to contribute. It's like, okay, I'm still worthy, I'm still doing something. And I know I get caught up in that sometimes, and especially when I had younger kids. It's like, okay, I had a great job, and now I'm married and having kids, and my contribution is how many diapers did I change today? That was my job. It's like, you know, I'm really helping out a lot here. And God had to work on me a lot to, you know, to say, okay, that is my role now. That is my job. I am so-and-so's mom, or I'm Lee's wife. That was my identity. And so God had to work on me a lot, and he used Hosea some of going, you know, you have a place in me. You don't have to necessarily be the rock star at the moment. You can be in that backseater. You can, you know, you have a very significant role. And sometimes that's really hard to grasp.
Yeah.
That you're not a second class citizen because you're not up front and center.
Yeah. That's good. Okay, anything else?
In addition to that, I remember when I was in my early 20s, had just gotten out of college, and there was a big movement in our church at the time to become missionaries, and a lot of my friends were, you know, going out and, you know, going places, and, you know, they're still there, you know, overseas and other places, and really having to stop and think, you know, is that where God wants me? And, you know, praying about it, and I remember this passage of scripture and really feeling that God led me to the point of saying that He would give me a family, and that family would be my mission field. That family would be my ministry. And when those moments come, it's like, okay, you know, I prayed about this. God told me this is the moment that I'm here for. You know, not that I'm, you know, not supposed to go or anything like that. But it does kind of just reassure you in your role that this is important.
It's very important.
It's not any less important than, you know, going and doing, but this here is as well.
Well, it's like what we talked about this summer with we're being built into a spiritual house. I mean, there were some stones, were living stones being built out of Peter. And I mean, there were some stones that were up front and center, but there were other stones, very important. If they were missing, the building would not have been stable. But they're subtle, they're unseen, just, you know, they're hidden, and they're just as important to the building. And so, yeah, very good point.
Like an ordaination.
It's more
I know.
important than you realize. Like,
Yes.
you don't realize somebody else is depending on you where they're gonna get. You know, you're
Yes.
thinking, man, I'm just this housewife cleaning up whatever.
Yes.
Instead of what could your husband not do if you weren't doing that?
Right.
Yeah, that's the way I think about it, is how much more, if I had a sick child, would he have to come home? Would he not be able to go
Right.
to work? If I, you know, by being a stay-at-home mom, he has the ability to always be able to be at his top, because
Yeah.
I can take care of the household.
And you
And
don't
so
have to worry.
if they think about that I am his support system, it makes it so much easier to know that everything I do at home is for him to not be worried about.
I mean, I'm so happy to hear you all saying this because we live in such a YouTube superstar. Everyone wants to make a name for themselves. I mean, in church and out of church, I want to be seen. I want to be the biggest, best, superstar. And I mean, no, our role can be very subtle. Very, very subtle, very behind the scenes, very unseen, and yet pleasing to the
And we're
Lord.
still called to be a light wherever, whether
Yes.
it's the Bible study or
Yes.
PTA
Your
or mom's group,
family.
and we're
Yes.
raising up the next generation.
I
You just
know.
can't
But
brush
not
that under
only
the
that,
carpet.
you're also caring for your parents. I mean, that's a
Yes,
huge.
yeah.
Those are so. When God defines good works, they're not all superstar YouTube famous. Get a star for doing it. I mean, some of it's just very quiet, very subtle. Be prayer life, submitting to your husbands. Those are what the
And
word
these are gonna
describes
be
as good
these are gonna be
deeds.
the next these are gonna be the next
Yes,
lights of the, you know what I
yes.
mean? I mean they're gonna be our next missionaries or
Yes.
stay-at-home moms or whatever, teachers.
Yes,
So
exactly.
why shouldn't that be a 24/7 job?
But I think those important, subtle, behind the scene roles are being so neglected for the big, everybody see me, make a name for myself. And I don't know, I keep thinking about the Pharisees. You do your works to be seen, and therefore you've received your reward. Had your
Whatever
praise from
season that
men.
we're in,
Yes.
we should make the best effort in that season.
And
And there
that-
will be different seasons in your life.
Yes. But the other thing I found in such a quest to be seen and do our works to be seen in ministries that are, awarded, the home is suffering. And that's what we're really called, our home first. And when we, we're so busy being seen and noticed that our family's neglected. A submission to husbands, teaching your children, those things are, and that's what God describes first as our role. So anyway, I'm so pleased to hear you all say that and know that, because it is hard sometimes.
I was told once that the little boy who had the fish and the loaves,
Mhm.
that the mom
Yes.
that lunch.
Excellent. Yes.
There is on her face.
Yes. Yes. Yep. This behind the scenes not mentioned yet. Very important. Okay. Let's go to 1 Kings. I mean, I even think that can become an idol, the praise of man. Even doing good things, church things, that can still become an idol, just pursuing the praise of man and not pursuing the pleasure of God.
I think it's the wrong heart. Like,
Yes.
oh, hey, people are gonna see me go to church every
Yes.
whatever, instead of coming there for the blessing.
Yes. The humility of just serving Him. Yeah. Okay, 1 Kings chapter 11. I'll read the first 13 verses. Now King Solomon loved many foreign women, along with the daughter of Pharaoh, Moabite, Ammonite, Edomite, Sidonian, and Hittite women. For the nations concerning which the Lord had said to the sons of Israel, "You shall not associate with them, neither shall they associate with you, for they will surely turn your heart away after their gods." Solomon held fast to these in love, and he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned his heart away. For it came about when Solomon was old, his wives turned his heart away after other gods, and his heart was not wholly devoted to the Lord his God, as the heart of David his father had been. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and after Milcom, the detestable idol of the Ammonites. And Solomon did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and did not follow the Lord fully, as David his father had done. Then Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the detestable idol of Moab, on the mountain which is east of Jerusalem, and for Molech, the detestable idol of the sons of Ammon. Thus he did for all his foreign wives, who burned incense and sacrificed to their gods. Now the Lord was angry with Solomon, because his heart was turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice, and had commanded him concerning this thing, that he should not go after other gods. But he did not observe what the Lord had commanded. So the Lord said to Solomon, because you have done this, you have not kept my covenant and my statutes which I have commanded you, I will surely tear the kingdom from you and will give it to your servant. Nevertheless, I will not do it in your days for the sake of your father David, but I will tear it out of the hand of your son. However, I will not tear away all the kingdom, but I will give one tribe to your son for the sake of my servant David, and for the sake of Jerusalem, which I have chosen. Okay, so here we have King Solomon warned, don't associate with these women who serve other gods. They were warned and warned and warned. Hi, Kelly. I'm sorry. No, it's good.
Well, his first mistake was marrying the Pharaoh's daughter.
Yeah, I mean, he just would not. He refused to obey in this. And he was even told why. We were told so clearly why. And it's because they would turn their heart away. And then you see, they turned his heart away. In verse 4, after other gods, and his heart was not wholly devoted to the Lord his God. And then again in verse 6, did not follow the Lord fully. I mean, this is a half-hearted devotion. That's idolatry. It's a half-hearted. It's a divided heart. I love the Lord, and I want all the blessings of knowing the Lord, but I also want the things that the world offers. I want friendship with the world is hostility towards God, and it's just that double-hearted, double-minded, wanting just a divided heart, whereas holiness is a single-minded pursuit of God and just devotion to Him. And marriage is such a great example of that. I mean, you know, the minute...
And I think it was prideful too, because
he
thinks he's strong enough, he's going to handle all that.
Doing what
Thinking
was right
he's
in his own eyes.
Yes, an exception to God's law, or an exception. Oh, it won't affect me. They won't turn my heart away. I'm Solomon. And then, it did.
Well, and he only started with one extra bite.
I know.
And we all just start with one extra bite of cookie or cake or whatever.
I mean, whatever it is. One pair of shoes. Whatever it is. I mean, yes, and then it just... Because it's not fulfilling, I think. It didn't fulfill. It didn't do what it promised, so more. And then he ends up with all these wives.
That one didn't hurt. We'll just do one more. It's not a big deal.
700 wives and 300 concubines. What do you do with
give them the
1,000
nurture
women?
Or any attention when you've
You
got
don't.
that many?
It's just a...
Well, it's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
I know.
It
It was more like an
wasn't so
accessory,
much the
wasn't it?
sexual part.
Yeah.
It's about acquiring and having.
Yeah, it was
And showing off.
ownership and...
Look at my
yeah.
status.
It was also
What I can
alliance
afford.
for military
Yes,
purposes.
yes. Oh,
Which
that's a
also
good
shows
point.
another level of not trusting God.
Exactly.
That's a good
Yeah.
point.
But it does say he loved many women. I think he liked women a lot. But yes, it did. It formed alliances that, just not trusting God, just not trusting Him wholly to be, trust
And you
in
have to think that it wasn't just Solomon. I mean, he was the leader of the country. His example set the whole country. So if it's just
Yes.
one man being so chaotic in his household, the country is the same way.
Yes, exactly. Which, again, I mean, I thought it was just very interesting in light of the commandment about the generations. And here, because God loved David so much, He didn't divide the kingdom during Solomon's day. But then because of Solomon's choices and sins, it's it's going to be divided. This is why the kingdom. And then as you read on through the kings and through the history of Israel, you'll have a king of Israel and then a king of Judah, because the kingdom's just like right here. Solomon's son continued on the throne in Judah, but Israel had another king, and they were the northern kingdom, and they were divided kingdom under different kings, and
he's also an example of, although God gave him great wisdom, he allowed his emotions to control. And I mean, emotions get in our way as Christians. And it's not that they're bad, but if they take over what you know is right, then they are bad.
Yeah, and like what Dion was saying, could have even been more than just emotion. It's just not trusting God to bring about the alliances and worry about your public relations. Just, serve the Lord with all of your heart, Him only, and then let Him worry about the alliances.
And you look at his poetry, though, and he was a romantic.
Yeah, he was. And he did love women. He did.
In love with love.
I know, but 1,000. There's something else going on here. That's just.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it was an ego. It was an ego thing. A big harem would have been an ego thing.
You go back to that first and second generation too. Dad didn't exactly set him out right. Dad had a few. David had a few wives.
Yes, he did.
Well, Solomon was a product of that. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And he would have grown up kind of being that shunned child, everybody knew about it.
Yes.
But yet he, chose that for his children as well. It seems.
But it happens.
How many children he had with all his wives.
Dion, what were you going to say?
Just that this seems like an example of God visiting the iniquity on the third and fourth
Yes,
generation.
exactly. That's what I was thinking too. Yeah, the way. Yeah, yes, with the and on so many levels. David to Solomon with the multiple wives, but then also showing kindness and that he didn't divide the kingdom because of David, and then Solomon's sons. There's just going to be a lot of turmoil in their households after he dies, and a lot of unrest. So yeah, the ripple effects, yes. So any other thoughts or comments on that? Just the divided heart. So that's what this really showed. I mean, because that's easy for us to see, the divided heart, and just wanting God's blessings. And that's the other appeal of idolatry, is that, your idol can make demands that you're already doing. That cost you, easy demands, easy. No hard choices there. Any other thoughts or questions on Solomon? Okay.
I could just see that on TV as a commercial. Make your own idol.
Well,
you can dress it up however you would like.
It's funny you say that, because my kids had me listen to one. It was on the internet. I don't even know where, but it was a spoof on Build-A-Bear, but it was Build-A-God.
Oh my God.
And it was making fun of what we do. The first thing you did was pick its gender. Do you want your God to be male or female? And then, do you want him to be loving? Do you want him to be judgmental? What kind of God? No, I want my God to be so loving and just accept everybody and no judgment. Anyway, it's Build-A-God. And then at the end, you get to name your God. And everybody that goes through names their God Jesus. They just describe, qualities that are palatable and they like. But but they all call it Jesus. Yeah, it was a very.
That is really cool.
It was Build-A-God. I don't even know. It's been a while since I've heard it, but anyway, it was pretty appropriate.
Build-A-Bear's still around, so that's important.
Yeah. Okay. And then this passage in Isaiah, there's so much sarcasm here. So you have to really appreciate sarcasm and what Isaiah is communicating. But it's going to expose just the foolishness of following something that your hands, worshiping something that your hands have made. So Isaiah 44, we'll start in verse 6. Thus says the Lord, the King of Israel, and his Redeemer, the Lord of hosts. I am the first, and I am the last, and there is no God besides me. And who is like me? Let him proclaim and declare it. Yes, let him recount it to me in order from the time that I established the ancient nation, and let them declare to them the things that are coming and the events that are going to take place. Do not tremble and do not be afraid. Have I not long since announced it to you and declared it? And you are my witnesses. Is there any God besides me, or is there any other rock? I know of none. So he's saying, is there anyone like me? If there is, let him tell the end from the beginning. Let him tell what's going to, in such great detail and accuracy. And he's like, how long have I announced it? And he said, you are my witnesses. Is there any God besides me, or is there any other rock? I know of none. And now he's going to get into the sarcasm.
Oh, you put Job down. I was going to say Job.
Yeah, I know. That's what we're going to.
There's a lot of sarcasm in that.
Yes. Okay, so Isaiah 44, starting in verse 9. Those who fashion a graven image are all of them futile, and their precious things are of no profit. Even their own witnesses fail to see or know, so that they will be put to shame. Who has fashioned a god or cast an idol to no profit? Behold, all his companions will be put to shame, for the craftsmen themselves are mere men. Let them all assemble themselves, let them stand up, let them tremble, let them together be put to shame. The man shapes iron into a cutting tool, and does his work over the coals, fashioning it with hammers and working it with his strong arm. He also gets hungry and his strength fails. He drinks no water and becomes weary. So just contrast this with God, who says, let there be light, and there's light. He's saying here, this guy is just a man. He's going to get hungry, and he's going to get tired, and he's going to get weak, and he's having to, fashion this with hammers and, creating it. Verse 13. Another shapes wood. He extends a measuring line. He outlines it with red chalk. He works it with planes and outlines it with a compass and makes it like the form of man, like the beauty of man, so that it may sit in a house. So he's omnipresent. He's omniscient. Sovereign. And he's comparing. This man makes an idol and sits in his house. He can't go anywhere. He can't move. He just sits. He can't even move himself. And, so then, surely he cuts cedars for himself, and takes a cypress or an oak, and raises it for himself among the trees of the forest. He plants a fir, and the rain makes it grow. The man cannot even grow his own wood. He's dependent on God himself to make the tree grow. Then it becomes something for a man to burn. So he takes one of them, warms himself, and he also makes a fire to bake bread. He also makes a god and worships it. He makes a graven image and falls down before it. Half of it burns in the fire. Over this half he eats meat as he roasts a roast and is satisfied. He also warms himself and says, I am warm. I have seen the fire. But the rest of it he makes into a god, his graven image. He falls down before it and worships. He also prays to it and says, deliver me, for thou art my God. So again, he takes this wood that they're using. They use it to burn and to bake bread. It's just nothing special about what they're even using to make the wood. It's the same wood they throw in the fireplace and use it to cook the bread and warm themselves. And then they fall down. This God that they've just made that sits because it can't move itself, and then they fall down and worship it. They pray to it, and then they say, deliver me.
Mm-hmm. They pray for heat and ironically burn it.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, then verse 18. They do not know, nor do they understand, for he has smeared over their eyes so that they cannot see, and their hearts so that they cannot comprehend. And no one recalls, nor is there knowledge or understanding to say, I have burned half of it in fire, and have also baked bread over its coals. I roast my meat and eat it. Then I make the rest into an abomination. I fall down before a block of wood. He feeds on ashes. A deceived heart has turned him aside, and he cannot deliver himself, nor say, is there not a lie in my right hand? So in other words, this idol maker, God blinds him. He can't even see the absurdity of what he's just done. I mean, they're so blind and so just ignorant, foolish. They don't even know what they can't even comprehend the absurdity of what they've just done. So I mean, I love the sarcasm there. It makes a great point. Do you? I mean, it's
do that with money.
We do that with.
We do
I mean,
that with a lot of things.
It's so.
It's just your perspective of what. Is it something you use, or is it something that you do because that's what you do for a living? You do all of that because that makes life worth living. It's like, is it a tool, or is it something I'm a tool for? I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yes. Yes. And of course we could have looked at the one in 1 Samuel when they take the Ark of the Covenant and their god Dagon falls. And I mean, just the the head falls off and they have to go in and set up their god. I mean, it's just the absurdity of worshiping something so futile. It's just. Does anyone else have anything to? It's hard to add to what Isaiah said.
Yeah.
It's pretty clear. I love the satire of this.
You can turn anything into an idol.
Yes, we can, and we do, and that's why. I mean, just the work of our hands. Yeah. Like just. I don't. Deuteronomy kept coming to mind. Should have looked at that again, but. Yeah, it's like when God provides, He says, never. Well, I'm gonna flip to it. You don't have to, but Deuteronomy 8. Just pull out some key verses here. He says, when you have eaten and you're satisfied and built good houses and live in them, and when your herds and your flocks multiply and your silver and your gold multiply and all that you have multiplies, then your heart becomes proud and you forget the Lord your God who brought you out from the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. And then verse 17, he says, otherwise you may say in your heart, my power and my strength and the strength of my hand has made this wealth, but you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is He who has given you power to make wealth, that He may confirm His covenant which He swore to your fathers as it is this day. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a good job, paying the bills, clothing your family, feeding your. There's nothing wrong with that, but never forget who allows that. I mean, it's God who what do you say? Here's the word again. It is He who is giving you the power to make the wealth. I mean, everything is a gift from Him.
That's what our country's forgotten.
Yes. But it starts with us. Because we know Him personally. It starts with us. And just, being grateful for what our husbands do and that they can provide, and just never forgetting. I mean, anything can happen to the economy, anything. Just never forget we're really dependent on the Lord, and He's really the one that provides for us. Through our husbands, through their jobs, but it's still, we're so dependent on Him for everything. And idolatry is when we put our hope, our faith, our trust in something other than God. Like, it can even be the ability to earn a good living and forget that it's God that's enabled that.
Well, you can put your hope and trust in your 401k or retirement.
Yes.
But how much? That's not really able to take care of you. Only God can sustain you.
Yeah.
But there's so many people that seem to forget that.
Yes.
Or were never taught that by fault of.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I'm thinking of the rich man and Lazarus, and the rich man dies and he goes straight to Hades, and the beggar goes straight to Abraham's bosom, is what they called it. But I mean, he was a rich man, and he had all of his affairs in order. Everything was in order in this life, and yet when he died,
his affairs weren't in order.
His affairs were not. The only affair that mattered was not in order. Absolutely.
I think about that because as Christian women and raising a family, we just try to get everything done, and this is what our kids look like, and they're making all the right choices, and, you know, even serving, just the things that you do for God, it kind of turns into not being for God.
Yes, exactly. It all comes back to our pride. I know. It's just, this is so, idolatry is so big, and it's such a natural tendency. That's why it's mentioned so many times. And I just wanted to expose it in so many different ways that we can just put our hope and our trust in something else. I mean, it's good to be smart. It's good to plan, but just know that God's the source. Know that He's ultimately the one who's caring for us. Just never, ever, ever forget. And then I was going to end, we may not have time to read all, Job 38, and I just was like, let's just clasp our hands over our mouths and stand in awe with Job as we just, again, when I was looking at this, all that I could think of was, to whom shall we go? To whom? Why would we turn anywhere else? Where else is it? There is no God beside Him. None. He's the one and only. And then this is just such a great reminder that it's just silly to even think to turn anywhere else other than the true and living God. So I'm going to read Job 38. We're just going to be with Job and stand in awe. Then the Lord Himself answered God, because our God speaks. He speaks. He really talks. He answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, "Who is this that darkens counsel by words without..." I think I'm going to read it in the NIV. "Who is this who darkens my counsel with words without knowledge? Brace yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me if you understand. Who marked off its dimensions? Surely you know. Who stretched a measuring line across it? On what were its footing set? Or who laid its cornerstone while the morning stars sang together and all the angels shouted for joy? Who shut up the sea behind doors when it burst forth from the womb? When I made the clouds its garment and wrapped it in thick darkness, when I fixed the limits for it and set its doors and bars in place, when I said, 'This far you may come and no farther. Here is where your proud waves halt.' Have you ever given orders to the morning or shown the dawn its place, that it might take the earth by the edges and shake the wicked out of it? The earth takes shape like clay under a sill. Its features stand out like those of a garment. The wicked are denied their light, and their upraised arm is broken. Have you journeyed to the springs of the sea, or walked in the recesses of the deep? Have the gates of death been shown to you? Have you seen the gates of the shadow of death? Have you comprehended the vast expanses of the earth? Tell me if you know all this. What is the way of the abode of light? And where does darkness reside? Can you take them to their places? Do you know the path to their dwellings? Surely you know, for you were already born. You've lived so many years. Have you entered the storehouse of the snow, or seen the storehouses of the hell, which I reserved for times of trouble, for days of war and battle? What is the way to the place where the lightning is dispersed, or the place where the east winds are scattered over the earth? Who cuts a channel for the torrents of rain, and a path for the thunderstorm, to water a land where no man lives, a desert with no one in it, to satisfy a desolate wasteland, and make it sprout with grass? Does the rain have a father? Who fathers the drops of dew? From whose womb comes the ice? Who gives birth to the frost from heavens when the waters become hard as stone, when the surface of the deep is frozen? Can you bind the beautiful Pleiades? Can you loose the cords of Orion? Can you bring forth the constellations in their season, or lead out the bear with its cubs? Do you know the laws of the heavens? Can you set up God's domain over the earth? Can you raise your voice to the clouds and cover yourself with a flood of water? Do you send the lightning bolts on their way? Do they report to you? Here we are. Who endowed the heart with wisdom, or gave understanding to the mind? Who has the wisdom to count the clouds? Who can tip over the water jars of the heavens when the dust becomes hard and the clods of earth stick together? Do you hunt for prey for the lioness and satisfy the hunger of the lions when they crouch in their dens or lie in wait in the thicket? Who provides food for the raven when its young cry out to God and wander about for lack of food? It just goes on and on. It's just such a reminder of how small we are, how big He is.
And how not smart the people that think they're so smart are.
I know. And then you just picture this guy, growing a tree, so dependent on the water, cutting it, burning part of it, carving this hat, and then bowing down to it. It's just the
all these
absurdity.
scientists,
It's just the absurdity.
think they know everything, and they've got everything
Yes.
explained in their mind.
Yes. The other thing we could have looked at was Romans chapter 1, which talks about men refusing to worship God, ignoring the obvious evidence that He is, and then their thinking becomes futile. Just because God alone gives the understanding.
And that's what's so comforting about that.
Oh, yes. So good. And I just say again with Peter, to whom else would we go? Just the absurdity of idolatry.
I love seeing the detail that he brought out of his own creation. I mean, all these things are important to him, and to hear like the enthusiasm that he talks about each one of those things. Then look at the details of our lives and our jobs, and
I
they
know.
all matter.
I mean, that's such a good point because it's easy to think poof here, poof, poof, but every detail is so perfectly designed, which is so contrary to evolution, which is so chaotic and random, and this is so perfect, planned.
I mean, he even mentioned he gives intelligence, the ability to think, and then they don't credit him
They
with
don't
it.
acknowledge it's him. I know.
And they use it to try to disprove him,
Yes.
which is ironic.
It's just what we read in Hosea, though.
Yeah.
Use it to sacrifice to the Baals. Yeah, just